Andrew, while you're setting up, do you mind giving us a bit of a teaser about what you're going to present today?
Mike, hold mic. I don't have enough hands. Okay. Hey, I'm Andrew. I'm going to be talking mostly about my experience as a 13-year-old. As a 13-year-old indie dev. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Is it firing through, or are we just not really? Tuck it. Okay, tuck it.
So once again,
Yep.
Andrew from.
All right.
I'll let you say it. Andrew.
1 up plus.
Yeah.
Is that on? Okay, thank you. All right. Hey everybody, sorry, this is my first public talk, so if I've got plenty of nerves, hopefully you won't feel it. Okay, I'm presenting a topic here for everybody, which is, are you a founder and you just don't know it? So I'll describe my experience for the last 13 years as a small indie dev, and maybe you'll actually see some similarities in your interesting games. I've actually developed and self-published over 100 games. This talk is actually just going to be a reflection of those 13 years and what sort of things I went through and the sorts of thoughts and trials and tribulations. And maybe if at the end I might be able to talk about what I see today and what I'm doing. So, but we'll keep it to 15 minutes. So I'll talk about what happened before, our mobile sort of journey, and then having kids. I'll skip over that part. Moving to Steam and consoles. And I'll talk a little bit, really briefly, about tooling and access to education, which is a big thing nowadays, since we're in a university. Fantastic. All right. So I started off with a commerce degree at UNSW, majored in information systems and marketing. I then went on to work in two larger enterprises, Telstra and Macquarie Bank, in technical roles. And after two small businesses, not mine, worked in two other ones and a startup. I worked as a developer and a project manager. I think I've seen a bit of a gamut of the regular commercial software scene, and for about 10 years or so. And I felt like I needed a change. I was like kind of burnt out, I would say, on regular software dev. And I've been a gamer since teenage years. And so I just thought, well, what the heck? I'll just give it a go. I saved up a bit of a runway. The mortgage was put off for a while, getting that cut down. And during that time, I'd spent a little bit of time on risk-taking endeavors, such as currency futures trading and a little poker. And I say a little. It's not a gambling addiction or anything. But all of this sort of helped shape sort of the idea of running a small business, which is essentially what you're doing when you're in indie. You may or may not recognize it, and especially if you want to go long-term, like if you want to make one project and then make the next one, and then eventually, well, if you want to do this as a lifestyle or as a business without a boss, which is effectively what I've done for the last 13 years, you've got to start to frame it in terms of that, a commercial endeavor. So first, I first started out making mobile games. Robo Arena which is this tiny little image you can see here at the top there, is a simultaneously turn-based tactics game about programming little robots to fight, and your opponents do the same, and then you watch what happens. And then 10 seconds advance, and you can do it again. That actually took surprisingly long. Like I was intending it to just be a month because I had no idea what I was doing. I started off in Cocos 2D, I think, and it eventually got put on the shelf for a little while because I realized I got to a point 4 months in, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this thing. And my runway is, well, I give myself 9 months, which is probably not enough. And nowadays I would probably give myself 2 years. But like, yeah, it was not enough time for me to actually be able to finish. And luckily enough, I started to discover this idea, which is what you can see down the bottom. You may have seen it before. When you're asked to build something, you really, like prototyping is one thing, but think about not just the skill set that you're trying to acquire, but what's the actual product? What's the representation of the product, of the MVP? The MVP of the MVP. How does someone at the end of the day, play the game in a proxy format. And how do I do that in the shortest time possible? So I took that concept and I applied it to all the different parts of production. And since then, I've actually thought through different ways to actually even take that into pre-production. But essentially, I got back on the horse again and I tried a new game. I'll go through those really quickly. So up the top there is Megabee, the first game. It's literally just object avoidance. Put your finger on the screen. It was an iOS game released on iOS. Put your finger on the screen, move it around, and avoid obstacles, pick up power-ups, get a high score. That was it. So that thing took 2 weeks. And I published it, and it didn't do particularly well. I think I sold it for $2 or $3 on the iOS store at the time, and this is 2012, mind you. So it was very early days. The long upshot of it, however, was that I found a website where people were asking for games because the iOS store was a relatively new thing. They were looking to buy apps. I said, oh, okay, well, I've just written this thing and it took me 2 weeks, but I'll put it up there. And surprisingly, I got an offer for $5,000 US. I was like, not bad for 2 weeks. I'll take that. I could actually buy some art to put in the game because this is mostly stock art and my own doodles. So that was the beginning of our studio, effectively. That was like the first paycheck I got, and surprisingly, I snowballed that into the next game and the next game and so on. So we'll go through that. Zombies Hate Plants there was another game. Your games are going to suck, by the way, and that's okay as you make them. Hopefully you're not like me, but if you're like me at all, your games suck. This Zombies Hate Plants, you can actually look it up, or I'll send you a link if you're interested. A very nice couple of gentlemen called Chet and John reviewed the game, said it's the worst effing game on the store. Like on YouTube, it's still up there today. Those sort of comments you're just going to have to take in stride with things. You're learning, you're trying to figure out how this all works, and so on and so forth. Eventually made some parking games, some racing games, some match 2 games, and then we started to have some success. So I originally started with games, and I tried to take that 2-week approach and cut it down even more. So by the end of this 2-year period, I was making games one a week. So you could think of it like a game jam. Some of these started to extend out as they did well, because we were shotgunning effectively the 2 different app stores, the Google Play and iOS at the time. Some of them actually worked out, so I worked on them a few more weeks. So down bottom here, Skidoo X has about 1 million downloads. Amazing Princess Gymnastics had about 5 million. Sweet Shop Tower got a lot of plays. Actually, but that was because we experimented with ads. So everything else was organic. But Sweet Shop Tower, we started to experiment with ads. Unfortunately, it didn't end up in a commercial success. I think we put about $10,000 worth of ads in. It returned about $8,000 back, which I would say is not an awful painful. It is not an overall painful experience because I'd learned a ton of stuff about the whole free-to-play world, and so on and so forth. All right, so after all of that mobile journey, I then had 2 kids, lovely kids, very unrelated to game dev. My game dev kind of just dropped into the toilet during that period. But as they got older and routines became more established, I got back on the horse and we decided to make a Steam pivot. So we started to make more strategy, more serious titles, not so casual, and start to talk to publishers and get onto consoles. So our first few titles were strategic card games, Demon Tide and Origins, but we did also still publish them to the iOS stores. We got featured by Apple on Origins. Eventually, we then took all those learnings, and I built up. And by then, I think the team was still myself and my wife, but we eventually got 2 artists. And with Dungeon Top, I think we took a third person on, which was an audio person. And we found pretty good success. I have a really long story if you want to come and talk to me about dealing with publishers on that, because that was probably one of our most successful commercial Steam release or Steam and console releases, but it also was probably one of the worst decisions financially that we made, because we made a lot of decisions in a rush. Beyond that, we made Defend the Rook, which is a tactics game, worked with a French publisher on that, and then eventually built out a number of other games, going on to what I started to shift to in the last 2 years. So at the end of that, I went on a small stint into the Web3 world, just because we were not looking, I was looking to diversify my skills. I was interested in the cryptographic elements of blockchains, but that didn't end up very well, as everybody sort of saw. It was a big wave and then crashed. So I then eventually closed the team down to a much more manageable size, as in one person, and then but we kept an artist on board, so two. We moved to Unreal. I started learning Blender. And lately, we just started putting together Castellon and Oddjobs. So I'm not sure if I'm running out of time there, but I'd really love to be able to talk a bit about what I've discovered just in the last 2 minutes. Cool. Yeah, so what I've discovered, I guess, in the last 2 years of what being an indie is like. Access to funding is really important. Having a bit of a reputation going, talking to people, networking at events like this, obviously. I think one of the biggest and most difficult things to do, though, is kind of assess yourself on a skill level in terms of what kind of games you're putting out. The thing that I always sense as my true north, and the thing that drives me, is having people play the game. So if people are not playing the game, it means that the game's not very good, effectively, or I haven't found the right audience. So trying to figure out those two things are probably what it's all really about. And I wouldn't prescribe any one way of making games other than to say the smaller the better, because you can generally get more reps in. And more reps means that you start to see the whole gamut of game development. The last thing I might mention also is some really good role models, especially if you're thinking really small dev. I'd recommend having a look at some YouTubers like Gavin of 2 Star Games, Jonas Tyrola, or Dorian, I can't really pronounce his last name, Doot, the guy who made Minima Lane. And the reason for this is, although they all have kind of different styles, I think overall they tended to say solo, and they tended to control the process, and they wanted to understand the whole thing itself, which is very similar to what the sort of games that I've been making are very focused on understanding and having a hand on everything. It may be that you may be in that situation, in a very lucky situation, you've got a fantastic partner or a group of people that you can work in, but invariably from time to time, and lifestyle differences, like I had kids and stuff, you may end up finding yourself solo, but that's not a reason why you should stop making games. So there you go. Come and find me on the floor, or if you have any questions, I'd love to chat. Just love to chat about anything.
What a wrong phrase to finish on.
Yeah.
Moving to Unreal. That was like the big bold.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Blue?
Absolutely.
For those who don't know,
Yes. Surprisingly, so I was programming Unity for 10 years, so C# all the way. But the move to Unreal, fully blueprints, and now I don't touch C++ at all. I love it. I love it. This would be a contrary take, but I can say that as a programmer, one of the benefits of just going with a visual language is you're focused more on logic, and you're not focused on syntax. This helps you just think a little clearer and not get into the weeds. Downside is that at the moment, Copilot and AI and all the rest of it, not as helpful. But there is one called Ludus AI, which is just putting out a beta that can write blueprints, but to be honest, you're better off learning it yourself.
Visually figure it out. Like, it tried to draw a diagram once when I and it was like, this doesn't look right.
Exactly.
But anyway, blueprints.
Blueprints all the way, and it's not just from a pro perspective. If you're a close to solo artist like myself, I like the flows in Unreal. It's very opinionated. However, it helps someone like a programmer structure an art process, an art pipeline. which very much helps if you're not not a trained artist.
I did like how it was.
Yep.
Sorry,
yeah.
shakers.
Yeah.
One more time.
Hey,
Round of applause.
thank you.